Where is my what's up? What's up? What's happening, everybody? It's Sunday, so you know what that means. It's time for Moment with MoeSghetti. Yo, I'm your hostess with the mostesses, MoeSghetti herself, your spiritual and mental wellness guide, your auntie, sister, cousin, best friend who's always coming with the realness. And I am here to welcome you to Moment with MoeSghetti. Hello, 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 hello. If I seem a little low energy or a little melancholy, it's because my subject today has been weighing a little heavy on me, and so I'm hoping to still bring you the energy, still bring you my spark. But I don't know. It's we're gonna be talking about vulnerability today, and so with that comes just the general discomfort of being vulnerable. And so we're gonna walk through that thing together. But before we walk through today's subject, I see one viewer. I'm assuming that that's my biggest fan about to pop up in the comments. But if not, regardless, either way, welcome. So let's get into the church announcements for the week. You know, I have been. I'm not even gonna make this. I'm not even gonna make this commitment. I'm gonna lie to myself out loud real quick. Look when I'm gonna take a break. But when I come back from my break, I'm gonna have a theme song for church announcements. Hold me to it. Make me write. Look, at some point within the next year, maybe I'll write a theme song for church announcements. Church announcements. Church announcements. Church announcements. No. Over on TikTok, I've been doing affirmations, and those have a bit of a theme song that have developed. Affirmation time. I do my bad singing when I do these theme songs. But anywho, so church announcements for the week. Um, Coming up on December 16th, if you follow me, hopefully you have seen, and hopefully you are ready for most Getty's Christmas Spectacular Variety Show coming up on December 16th at Muse 33. You can get your tickets now on Eventbrite. You can cash at me at MoeSghetti, $10 for the tickets, 15 at the door. So don't delay. Get them today. I'm just trying to bring back the feel of those old school like Christmas specials that we would see on TV every year. Like people been calling me Carol Burnett, and I say yes, let's do it. I'm really excited about it. I have some good friends and family of mine who will be putting on a show. If you've ever been to my Black History programs, if you've ever been to see me at Poetry Night, if you've ever been seeing me on stage with A&P, if you've ever seen me perform anything at all, this is going to be a bit of a conglomeration of my talents and the talents of the people who I know and love around me. And we're just going to have a holly jolly good time, celebrate the season, bring a little sparkle and glimmer into your life. For the Christmas season. So whatever your association with Christmas is, if you recognize it existing at all, I want you to come on down to Muse 33 on December 16th for the MoeSghetti Spectacular Variety Show. MoeSghetti Christmas Spectacular Variety Show. December 16th. All right. And then 2 weeks after that, Anthony McGahee and Praise Motivated will be having our anniversary concert, 26 years of ministry. We will be celebrating it on Saturday, December 29th. I'm very, very excited about that too. So I'm preparing for a lot of things at this juncture in my life, including recording a podcast and getting all emotional about my feelings. So please don't let my hard work Please don't let my hard work go in vain. Buy some of these tickets. Come to some of these shows. Support and be encouraged, because all of this, everything that I'm doing, performance wise, is for you guys' enjoyment, for your uplifting, for your encouragement. So I appreciate you all come out and get you some love, some encouragement, some healing, some support, some affirmation, some dopamine, some serotonin, some joy. All right. And the next church announcement, this is actually coming from the desk of the Central Church of Christ, my actual church. We are gathering toiletries and other items to give away to the local homeless shelters and rescue missions. So if you are interested in participating in that endeavor, we're collecting a variety of things. No clothes, no shoes. But we are looking for socks and underwear, toothpaste and shaving cream, pads and tampons, and other items that are a little bit more difficult to get on the street. And so, if you're interested in that, you can visit the Central Church of Christ Facebook page for more details on how to donate. Or you can hit me up directly and I can give you more information on how to donate as well. I am not spearheading this endeavor. One of my sisters in Christ, Pornisha Orr, is heading this endeavor. And I really appreciate when anybody in the community, especially one of my congregation members, are putting forth an initiative to be a broader help to society. So if you want to help us help others, hit me up and I can let you know further. And I can also post on my page what types of donations we're looking for. So with that being said, I'm glad I look really good on this camera today because I do not feel the best about this topic. Ah! Okay. So today we are talking about vulnerability. And I don't want to do it. But why am I talking about vulnerability when I don't want to do it? Because it is a theme that keeps popping up in my life. And when things pop up in my life, a lot of the times I take those as signs and signals and reflections of what I need to work on or what I need to speak on. And so here we are to talk about vulnerability today. And I'm going to do so ever so uncomfortably. So if you see me sitting up here like this the entire time, just know I'm just trying to comfort myself through the conversation. Okay? Okay. Okay. So, vulnerability. We'll start out with a couple of definitions. I like to, if you watch me, I like to start off definitions to make sure that we are on one accord as far as the perspective in which we are coming to the conversation from. Hello, Moe MoeSghetti. She is in the building just in time. God bless you. Hello. So I feel like I've talked about vulnerability before, or at least some of the things that I'm going to talk, some of the things that I thought I was going to talk about. Um, but as I started to dive into preparing for today, it took on a bit of a different light, a different angle than what I have come to the subject at, than how I have come to the subject before. So I'm going to start off by reading the definition of vulnerable, and I'm going to take it from there. I do have show notes. I don't know whether or not I'm going to be sticking to them. I'm going to just let this kind of flow the way it wants to flow. So, vulnerable. The definition of vulnerable is susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Vulnerable. Susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Now, when I was preparing, see, and this is one of the main reasons why I like to start off with like a definition when I dive into a subject, because the way that we use language and the way that it is actually defined sometimes has not much to do with each other. And if we don't get a clear definition of what we're talking about, then we're not necessarily on one accord. But sometimes I have revelations when I just have the definition of the word in front of me, because we use it, we understand what it means. But on paper, like, what is the impact of this word? And so when I looked at the word vulnerable, susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm, um, I immediately began to think that we use this word incorrectly a lot of the time. A lot of the time, I feel like we use this word incorrectly, especially when we are encouraging people to be vulnerable. I feel like, or encouraging people to share their world. I feel like we're using this word incorrectly. Um, because to be vulnerable means that you put yourself in a position where you could possibly be hurt physically or emotionally. And if we looked at it from the framework of a person potentially being harmed by participating in this act, I think that we would encourage people to be vulnerable less, or at least have more pointed language for what we're actually wanting to have. Because in the instances when people desire for you to be vulnerable, unless they are the attacker, it's more likely that they don't want you to be harmed. It's more likely that what they actually want from you is honesty. And so I looked up the word honest, and honest means free of deceit and untruthfulness, or sincere. Honesty means free of deceit and untruthfulness. It also means sincere. And so, a lot of the times when we're requesting vulnerability, I don't think we understand exactly what we're asking. We're asking a person to step outside of themselves and step into the potential state of harm. Now, from the outside, the person that is requesting it, I don't think we realize that's what we're requesting. I think we think we're requesting honesty, sincerity from the person. But what actually happens though is that when you're being vulnerable on the inside, you feel exactly what that definition says. You feel like you've stepped out of the space of safety and into the space of potential physical or emotional harm. I shared with you guys back in the summer that I went to an open mic and I shared a lot of my personal information from those people. And I believe that's when I talked about vulnerability before. Um, and it was very difficult for me before and after that experience. But I really felt like I needed to share my story because I felt like it was um, me not being honest and open and sincere about the things that have happened in my life was creating a barrier between me and other people. It also was creating a barrier between myself and my potential growth. It was also keeping a barrier between myself and my ability to help others and be open and honest about it. And so there were several different reasons why I chose to go ahead and be open and honest and sincere about things that have happened in my life, specifically childhood sexual trauma. Um, I had to be honest with myself and sincere with myself about even what happened in order to open my mouth and speak about it. And at that juncture, it was, I can't even say the first, it was the only time I've spoken on that subject in that detail to that extent, including in therapy. I've brought it up in therapy before, but I felt like it was a little bit glossed over. And I definitely need to continue to deep dive into that subject with a therapist who is willing and ready to talk about it at the same time that I'm willing and ready to talk about it. Um, but I chose to do that because I felt like the benefits outweighed the risks. I had to have a conversation with myself about vulnerability before I even decided to do it because there were several open mics that I had gone to in which I wanted to share my story, but I chose not to because fear. Like I got nervous and chickened out, and so I had to have conversations with myself in order to even muster up the energy and the courage to do it. And so when I did, one of the things that propelled me to step forward was I had to remind myself, not even convince, because I never really convinced myself, but I had to, like deep down on the inside, but I had to remind myself that I wasn't actually vulnerable. What I was doing felt like an act of bravery because it felt like I was stepping out of the comfort zone and onto the battlefield and like somebody potentially could hurt me. But I had to remind myself that I actually wasn't in a vulnerable position by speaking my truth and my story. Like the details of the scenario have long passed. There definitely are residual effects in my life now, but the details of it had long been over. And so I had to remind myself not only are you physically safe, but you are emotionally safe. nobody is actually going to come up here and harm you. Nobody's going to say anything crazy to you. The environment is safe. I was encouraged by the host of the show to go ahead and be open and honest, um, because he could see that there was something that I was dying to share, but I was holding back, and he encouraged me to be open and not resist, and to be free for my own sake, and created the atmosphere in which that could occur. And so I literally like had to have a conversation with myself, like, what is going to happen if you speak on this subject? And because of the consequences, there are other people in my life that could be affected uh, by me speaking about my story, but it wasn't anything outside of what I felt like I could handle, especially being in that sort of atmosphere, uh, where there really wasn't anybody. I mean, there were the people who were present around, but I mean, there wasn't anybody really around that was going to bring this information back or ask me too many questions. It was a safe environment. Like, who gonna check me? Who gonna fight me? And when I realized that the worst thing that could happen was I would be uncomfortable, then I chose to be open and honest. When I realized that I actually wasn't vulnerable, I wasn't in a position where I could be harmed physically or emotionally, I decided to proceed on with doing it, with speaking, with being open and honest. Um, and I would love to say, I would love to say that afterwards I felt this great sense of relief and release and liberation. I would love to say that that was the result. It was not. It was not. In the time after that, I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I didn't even really I didn't really know what to do with that information being out in the world. Um, as recently as this last week, this last Tuesday, another poet who was there that day um, shared a vulnerable poem of theirs, an honest poem, a sincere poem, a close story of theirs, a sensitive story of theirs. And they literally, before they got started, told me that me and another poet who have similar stories were raw and uncut and vulnerable about ourselves. And that inspired them to be more vulnerable in their work, to be more open in their work, to be more honest in their work. Um, so it still comes back that I did that. um, and I'm working on being okay with it. But again, as uncomfortable as I might be, I'm not physically under attack. I'm okay. I'm not emotionally under attack, at least not from the outside. I'm okay. Um, and so I guess at this juncture, I'm working on developing what it truly means to be vulnerable and comfortable in that honesty. But I have a very sensitive and uncomfortable story to tell, and so I don't want to tell it. But I also don't want to continue to fragment myself. There is a YouTuber slash TikToker who I came across really within the last couple of days. Her name is Stay Hype, and she's really been resonating with me because of where she is on her spiritual journey. And one of the things that she was talking about was dissociating from her um, childhood sexual trauma, and how when it happened, she completely disconnected herself from the event. Um, and it took 22 years for her to reconnect herself with the event and allow the memories to come through and allow the pain to process. Um, for the sake of not being vulnerable, one of the things that, and I've been healing this really over the last, probably 5 years, was me dissociating myself from myself, not just because uh, of, of the sexual traumas, but because of really just perfectionism and trying to show up as a person who is capable in different arenas of life. And so there was a time where I would be one way in one space and another way in another space. And I never really saw myself as being inauthentic, but I very much so was aware that these different versions of myself were not integrated. They were not integrated because if any time the worlds would collide, I would have a mini crisis and I'd have to reconfigure in my head really quick of how to even operate in that space, from the way that I speak to the way that I sit, from the way that I walk, like um and it took for me to be honest with myself, to be sincere about who I am and the things that I like, for me to begin to integrate myself, for me to understand that if I am myself, my full self, in all of the spaces that I occupy, I'm not vulnerable. Ain't nobody gonna check me. Ain't nobody gonna fight me. Ain't nobody gonna yell at me. You cannot harm me physically or emotionally. And if you do attempt to harm me physically or emotionally, I have the tools to handle that. Um, and so I began to integrate myself and become more of me, the honest, free of deceit and untruthfulness, the sincere version of me. I began to integrate myself. And so I found dissociation to be a very interesting term. Well, yeah, a very interesting reaction, because I didn't realize that feeling vulnerable was causing me to be a dissociated version of myself, for me to disconnect from myself. Dissociation, I don't have the specific definition of dissociation written down today, but if you break it down, to associate is to integrate, to connect with other people. To dissociate is the opposite. Just take and replace this, just root words, English maybe. um, and so dissociating with from myself in these different arenas was a trauma response of not feeling safe, not feeling good enough, not feeling like I needed to perform to a certain level in these different spaces. Um, and one of the things that I teach so frequently, especially at this juncture in my life, is authenticity of self. Authenticity of self is like the core of being a better, brighter person, is at the core of um, attaining all the desires that you want in your life. Because if you're not authentic with yourself and your desires, then you'll never get what you won't know what you want, and you won't get what you want. And so it's very important for me to show up as authentic as me, as my full free self, as honest in the different arenas that I go to. So sometimes that means MoeSghetti is a little weird. Mm, that's okay. It means that I had to be okay with liking things that other people around me might not like, and disliking things that other people around me might like, and being okay with that. Because guess what? I'm not vulnerable. I'm not susceptible to physical or emotional attack by existing as myself. And if I do become vulnerable or susceptible to physical or emotional attack, I have the tools to deal with that. And I won't be afraid. I'm less afraid to use the tools to deal with people having a backlash against me being myself, when I truly desire and enjoy being myself. When I have integrated, when I reassociated me with me, it's hard to not be me, and I'll fight to the end to continue to be me. And so, what we're looking for from people is honesty. What we're looking for is sincerity. But as people are healing and sharing, I think it's really important that we are mindful of how we treat people as they are healing and as they're sharing. To meet people where they are on their journey and not force them any faster ahead or to push them any slower behind. It is important that if your people are ready to share their story, that you're available to listen. And if they don't want to share their stories, that you are available to hold space for them wherever they are. And that if a person does share their story with you, that you are not so forceful in wanting to hear it again and again, or wanting more details, or wanting more out of them if they're not ready to give you more. Because that was another thing that I found. When you tell your business at an open mic in a poem form, people say things to you like, you should do that all the time. I want to hear that again. That's, to them, it's art. To you, it's life. And it's nice when you want to look at a pretty picture over and over again. It's a little bit more difficult when you realize that that picture is a photograph. And so I just encourage people to be mindful of things like that. Be mindful, especially, if you hear somebody sharing about trauma that has happened to their physical body. Be mindful of how you physically interact with them afterwards. A hug might seem like the best idea, and it could be the worst. Or withholding your physical affection might feel like the best idea, but it might be the worst. Really, it's best to attune to the reaction of the individual who is sharing. So I don't. Can you move the little finger cursor by the comments, because I'm not seeing what's happening in my comments, and I think there's some things I might want to read if you can hear me. Um, but yeah, so now talked about physical and emotional vulnerability, but one thing that I hadn't taken into consideration, though, through all of this healing and the sharing and knowing that I needed to do the things I needed to do, because who gonna check you, boo? One thing I hadn't considered, and I will try to take into consideration going forward, is that by stepping into these spaces and sharing my story and being honest and sincere and inspiring others, because I'm aware that the testimony can be fortifying to other people. I'm aware that sharing my story can encourage other people. I've seen it happen. What I hadn't taken into consideration, though, when being like, hey, ain't nobody finna fight me, ain't nobody finna yell at me, is that you can lend yourself to being spiritually vulnerable in those moments. You can lend yourself to being spiritually vulnerable in those moments. And I hadn't taken into consideration that part. And I recently had a revelation. When I say recently, like probably like Wednesday, had a revelation that one of the reasons why I'm hesitant towards sharing and being vulnerable um, in big open spaces is because I feel awful afterwards. I feel bad afterwards. I feel uncomfortable afterwards, and not just in a moment, but for like days and weeks. And the revelation that I had behind that was that's not fully a response to the vulnerability. It's not really a response to being open and uncomfortable. Some of that is spiritual vulnerability and me actually being attacked. And the reason why I came up, or some of the part of the reason why I came up with that conclusion is, if the demonic forces can make me so uncomfortable in sharing my inspirational stories that I don't want to do it again, or that I am um, a hazard to myself afterwards, if I mistreat myself afterwards, if I have maladaptive coping afterwards, I won't want to do it again. I won't want to go through that process again. I won't want to tell that story. I won't want to go through the nerves that it takes to tell the story and the recovery period afterwards. And when I realized that it could be potentially a spiritual attack, I'm spiritually vulnerable. I said, oh man, that means I got to get out here and be vulnerable again, because Part of my purpose is to heal. Let me what did I see? This thing is mirror image. So I put my head around and messed my hair up. It was cute. Go back, go back. But see, look, I can't even act right. Um, but yeah, I if I have this high level of discomfort coming up to it, and then this terrible coping and this high level of discomfort after it, I'm much less likely to participate in my storytelling. I'm much less likely to tell my testimony, which means I'm much less likely to touch other people who need to hear what I've been through, who need to have hope that they can get out of whatever it is that they're going through. And it doesn't even have to be. And that was another thing. I was like, I don't necessarily want to deal with teen moms. I don't necessarily want to deal with people who've dealt with childhood sexual trauma. That's not. I'm not opposed to it, but it's just not necessarily a niche that I'm trying to go into. But I'm having this revelation right now. My openness, my honesty, my sincerity can bring out the honesty, sincerity, and openness in other people, and it doesn't have to be in the same arena of life. I should have had that revelation on Tuesday, but I'm having it right now. So whatever. I didn't have a podcast on Tuesday. I had this today. But I can be inspirational to people in wherever they are on their journey. As a healer on this planet, it is my job. It is my job to give people the tools that they need in order to proceed forward. I'm very aware that my mouthpiece and my ability to the things that come out of my mouth, be it my speaking or my singing, are God-given gifts. People listen and pay attention when I speak. People listen and pay attention when I sing. People listen and pay attention when I spit rhymes. And they always have. People are encouraged or discouraged by the things that I say. People are encouraged or discouraged by the things that I sing. People are encouraged or discouraged by the disposition of my words when I speak directly to them. I'm aware of that. And with that awareness, I have to use my words wisely. But I have to use my words. The spirit, the enemy, wants nothing more than to shut me up. Look, I done had talked too much on every report card of my life. I'm not going to shut up. I don't know how. It's in the ADHD. I'm not going to shut up. I don't know how. I started a whole podcast because I want to talk to more people at one time than I can talk to one-on-one in session. I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to stop. But that means that I need to fortify myself spiritually so that I'm not susceptible or vulnerable. I'm not open to attack in that direction. And I was operating as if I didn't know what to do. If I didn't have the same kind of confidence I do. You're not finna fight me. You're not finna yell in my face. And now you not finna get past my angels. So no, I'm not comfortable. You said you get it from your mama, baby. I do get it from look. Oh, you talking about I get the dog too much from my mom. I get everything from my mama. Look like her too. Not everything. My daddy is but I have a mission and I've been accepted it. Otherwise, I work at like Target or something and just like make enough money to like pay my bills and go to, I don't know, Mexico every other year. I don't know. I'm on a mission and I don't want it to be thwarted by fear. And it will not be stopped by spiritual attacks, come as they might. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Them weapons, though, they be hurting. They won't prosper, but yeah. Sometimes that spiritual warfare is heavy. But I have confidence, and I have to go forth in my confidence in being vulnerable in other spaces, and knowing that my voice is a voice worth being heard. That the wholeness of me is the person that's worth being who I am in whatever space that I'm in. If you were around me in my pink hair era, that was all that part of that was all about integrating myself with myself. I know some people loved it, other people hated it. I know somebody, at least somebody, had to think it was ghetto. I loved it because guess what? MoeSghetti ghetto sometimes. MoeSghetti is incredibly proper other times. It just happens to be what falls out of my mouth. Both might fall out in the same sentence. But around that time, I also stopped code switching. I stopped changing how I speak given the environment. It fall out of me every once in a while. But I've integrated myself better to be able to speak as I am, no matter where I am. So if something intellectual falls out in the middle of the conversation while I'm on the block talking to whoever, whatever, it just is what it is. If I start talking about Jesus in the middle of the bar, it just is what it is. If I start talking about going to the bar in the middle of the church, just mind your business. If I crack a joke at a funeral, it is what it is. But I'm learning to be more mindset unapologetically hood, unapologetically MoeSghetti, free and sincere, free of deceit and untruthfulness. I don't want to be an untruthful version of myself. And I'm aware, different things call for different stuff. I'm not going to act the same way at the park as I do if you invited me to a banquet because I have couth. But I'm no longer and that's just because I want to sit up straight and be pretty. But I'm no longer abandoning myself for the sake of avoiding vulnerability, for the sake of avoiding being susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Because I know those things aren't coming. Because I know I'm protected. I'm protected in the physical. I'm protected in the spiritual. I'm protected emotionally, even though emotionally I might be a little wild from time to time. I surround myself with like-minded, safe people who aren't even on conflict and dangerous wavelengths, who desire to build and grow and save the community, who ain't robbing, killing, stealing, starting beef and drama. And granted, we know you don't have to be in the middle of mess in order for mess to find you and put you in the middle of it. But the more you're surrounded by the things of good, the more likely you'll be able to live an untouched life. I put myself physically in spaces where I am safe and comfortable. Place myself in the midst of people who I can be emotional with, and I'm protective of myself with those who I don't know whether or not they're trustworthy with my emotions and my free emotions. And now I'm adding back in because I know I've been slipping on my spiritual protection. I'm adding back in more prayer time, more intention to keep myself protected, to keep myself from being actually spiritually vulnerable, because not being physically vulnerable sometimes makes me forget that I'm still spiritually wide open and I am susceptible. I am susceptible to attack because I have such a desire to heal so many other people and lift them out of their dark spaces. The enemy wants to attack me because by taking me down, it takes down everybody and everything that I could potentially touch. And if that means getting me to shut up so I never speak life into you, this is the internet. I got one person watching right now, but who knows how many people will watch this in the eventually from now until the end of the internet, or at least the end of YouTube. And if it's one person a day, one person a year, one person a decade, if I can be shut up, that one person is not touched. If I can be shut up, that one person doesn't heal or doesn't get this dose of medicine that will take them to the next step. I have failed. The mission will still go on, but a soldier is cut out. And when you at war, you need as many soldiers as you can. So I gotta put on my armor and I gotta protect myself, but I gotta know that I am safe, and I have to operate as if I am safe, and I have to be confident that I have the tools to protect myself should I find myself actually in a vulnerable disposition. The last definition I'm going to speak today is the word strong. And then the Holy Spirit is telling me to go ahead and take it out after I talk about strong. The word strong. Strong is having the power to move heavy weights or perform other physically demanding tasks. Strong. Having the power to move heavy weights or perform other physically demanding tasks. Strong. Having the power to move heavy weights. After you are honest, sincere, people like to say, "Oh, you're so strong." I, I'm having a moment with that word right now because I would say it ain't strong. It's just honest. But you know what? That level of discomfort is a heavy weight. Now look, I told you I was gonna be around fidgeting with stuff. Being handling that level of discomfort is a heavy weight, and having the courage to or the audacity to actually move it is an honorable feat. And so while I moved myself away from the idea of being a strong black woman, because when you attach yourself with the phrase strong black woman, people assume that you are unbreakable and unbendable, and that's not the case. Um, but I think I will be going back to accepting being strong. Maybe not limitless, but strong. Because I do have the power to move heavy weights. And I'm not going to take that away from myself. And you have the power to move heavy weights. And I don't want you to take that away from yourself. I'm not limitless, and I might need some help in moving these weights. If you know me in real life, like I ain't been in the gym, but I do love lifting. I love lifting. I like being physically strong. Um, it's satisfactory to me because it lets me know that I can do things. Being emotionally strong lets me know that I can carry the weight of heavy things as they occur. I'm not indestructible. I'm not a superwoman. I'm not unlimited in that. Being spiritually strong lets me know I got some weight. Got some weight in the cosmos. I got some weight inside of me and alongside of me. The Holy Spirit got some weight, and we communicate. I myself am not limitless in that I need the prayers of the righteous, especially when I'm low. The spirits around me, they might be limitless. I'm not. I am strong. I do hold my own weight. I do carry my own stuff, and I can move heavy weights. I said, "The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is my rock, my salvation. Whom shall I fear? When He's the strength of my my enemies rise up in arms around me. Where can I go when the host encamps about me? I can hide in Jesus. Oh, well, then that's the answer. Look, when I need some reinforcements, I know I can hide in Jesus. When things are going, when I need to be reminded about what I can do if I do find myself vulnerable in the spirit, I can hide in Jesus. I can hide in God. For I know that He's my solid rock, and in the time of trouble, He shall hide me in the secret of His tabernacle. Okay, look. I said after I dealt with strength that I was gonna go on out, and I think that's about accurate. So we gonna pray it out, and I'm gonna probably go lay down somewhere. All right, let's go to God in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to your children. I thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon my life. Thank you for the ability to heal myself and others around you. I thank you for the insight, the light, the vision to move forward in your grace and in your glory. I ask that you be with me, that you lead me, guide me, protect me. I ask that you be with the people who are under the sound of my voice, that you lead them, guide them, protect them, that you place us in the spaces in which you need us to be so that we can do the work that you have us to do, that you fortify us through those experiences, that you protect us and hide us from attacks from the enemy. If they try to proceed upon our lives and they try to impede upon the missions that you have for us, I ask that you just cover us, lead us, guide us, hold us up high, so that your people can walk and flourish comfortably, freely as their authentic selves under your love, under your protection, under your guidance. Again, I thank you. I thank you for this time. I thank you for this space. I thank you for these words. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank God. And amen. All right. Um, yeah, thank you all for spending a moment with me today. It's been one. It's been one. Um, I didn't know how this was going to come out, but I like how it came out. So thank you for spending a moment with me. If you'd like to give me any appreciation for the time spent here today, you can hit my Cash App, hashtag MoeSghetti, MoeSghetti. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to inbox me or hit me up in the email, moesghetti@gmail.com. Again, that's spelled MoeSghetti. Um, yeah, I don't have nothing else to say. So, with that being said, thank you for spending a moment with me. I will see you next week. I am taking December off. So next week, probably next week, and I think maybe the week after will be it. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the calendar. Anywho, um, I got to get ready for my Christmas show, and I deserve a break, even just for myself. So thank you all for rocking with me, and I'll see you next time. Tom, take me